Ambassador Thyrus stood at the viewing window of her diplomatic shuttle and watched her homeworld burn. From orbit, Thalanthi Prime looked like it was covered in orange wombs. Each bright spot was a city dying under Keth bombardment. Each flash was millions of her people turning to ash. She pressed her four-fingered hand against the cold glass. Her pale blue skin had gone gray with grief. Her large dark eyes reflected the flames below. 12 years of war had led to this moment. The end of everything. Ambassador, her aide said softly from behind her. We are approaching the jump point. The Council has approved your mission. Thyrus did not turn around. The Council approved my mission because they have no other options. We are out of ships. We are out of soldiers. We are out of hope. The humans might help. Thyrus made a sound that was something between a laugh and a sob. The humans. A species that joined galactic civilization 40 years ago and has done nothing but trade and smile ever since. They have no military fleet. They have no weapons worth mentioning. They are soft creatures from a harsh world who somehow survived long enough to reach the stars. They are our only option, the aide reminded her. Thyrus finally turned away from the window. She could not watch any more. Yes, our only option is to beg help from a species that the Keth would destroy in an afternoon. Perhaps the humans will give us food supplies. Perhaps they will offer medical aid for our refugees. Perhaps they will write a strongly worded letter to the Keth, asking them to please stop committing genocide. The shuttle hummed as it prepared for the fold space jump. Thyrus walked to her seat and strapped herself in. She had made this journey to Earth once before, 5 years ago, as part of a cultural exchange. She remembered the humans as pleasant but unremarkable. They were smaller than most galactic species. They lived short lives. They seemed obsessed with art and music and strange competitions where they chased balls across fields. They were not warriors. Everyone in the galaxy knew this. The fold space jump took 3 hours. When the shuttle emerged near Earth's solar system, Thyrus looked out at the small blue planet and felt nothing but despair. This world had produced a species that had somehow clawed its way to the stars despite everything working against them. High gravity, extreme weather, predators everywhere. The humans called Earth a death world, and they said it with strange pride. But surviving a harsh planet did not make you capable of fighting the Keth. The Keth, Dominion had conquered 47 species in their history. They were insectoid creatures with hive minds, billions of soldiers who felt no fear and no mercy. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They arrived at a world, stripped it of everything useful, killed everyone on it, and moved on to the next target. The Volanthi Concordat had fought them for 12 years. 7 species working together, pooling all their resources, sacrificing everything. And they were still losing. The Keth simply had too many ships, too many soldiers, too little regard for their own losses. Thyrus's shuttle landed at the human capital city. She was met by a young human woman in formal clothing who introduced herself as Deputy Secretary Morrison. The woman had brown skin and kind eyes and a smile that seemed genuine. Ambassador Thyrus, Morrison said, bowing in the Volanthi style. We are honored by your visit. Secretary General Okonkwo is waiting for you. Thyrus followed the human through clean corridors and past beautiful gardens. Everything about Earth seemed peaceful. Children played in parks. People sat in outdoor cafes laughing and talking. There were no soldiers visible anywhere. No weapons. No signs that these creatures had ever known war. It made Thyrus angry. Her people were dying by the millions, and these humans sat in their gardens drinking hot beverages and discussing art. The Secretary General's office was large but simply decorated. Okonkwo was a tall human male with dark skin and gray hair. He stood when Theories entered and offered his hand in the human greeting gesture. Thyris took it, noting how warm human skin was compared to her own. "Ambassador," Okonkwo said, "please sit. I have been following the reports from your region of space. I am deeply sorry for what your people are suffering." Thyris sat in the offered chair. She had prepared a long speech full of diplomatic language and careful requests. But looking at this peaceful office while her world burned, she found she could not deliver it. "Secretary General, I will speak plainly. The Volanthi Concordat is dying. The Keth have destroyed our fleet. They have bombarded our worlds. They have killed billions of our people. We have perhaps days before our capital falls, and our species joins the list of those the Keth have erased from existence." Okonkwo listened without expression. His dark eyes never left her face. "I have come to ask for help," Thyris continued. "I know that humanity has no military fleet. I know that you have stayed neutral in all galactic conflicts. I am not asking you to fight the Keth. I am asking for anything you can give. Medical supplies, food, ships to evacuate our refugees. Anything." She stopped speaking. Her voice had started to shake, and she could not allow herself to show such weakness. Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. Then he pressed a button on his desk. "Deputy Secretary Morrison, please bring in Director Chun and Director Eulerum." Two more humans entered the office. One was a woman of Asian descent with short gray hair and a face that seemed carved from stone. The other was a younger man with the same dark skin as Okonkwo. They sat on either side of the Secretary General and studied Thyris with expressions she could not read. "Ambassador," Okonkwo said, "I would like you to tell us everything. Not the diplomatic version. The truth. What the Keth have done. What they are doing right now. All of it." Thyris hesitated. "Secretary General, I do not wish to burden you with horrors you cannot help us address. Tell us anyway." So Thyris told them. She spoke for over an hour. She described the first Keth attacks when the Concordat still thought they could negotiate. She described the destruction of the Morath homeworld, an entire species of gentle philosophers wiped out in a single day. She described the refugee camps overflowing with survivors who had watched their families die. She described the Keth breeding programs where captured aliens were used as living incubators for Keth larvae. She described the children. When she finished, her voice was hoarse and her eyes were wet with tears she could not stop. The three humans sat in silence. The woman, Director Chun, had her hands clenched into fists on the table. The man, Eulerum, was staring at something far away. Okonkwo spoke first. "How soon do you need us?" Thyris blinked. "I'm sorry? You came here for help. I am asking how soon you need that help to arrive. Secretary General, I appreciate your sympathy, but as I said, I am not asking you to fight. The Keth would destroy any force you could send. I am only asking for humanitarian aid." Okonkwo exchanged a look with the two directors. Something passed between them, some communication Thyris could not interpret. Then the Secretary General turned back to her. "Ambassador Thyris, I need to tell you something about humanity. Something we have not shared with the galactic community. We have spent 40 years building relationships, establishing trade, making friends. We have smiled and nodded and appeared harmless. This was deliberate." Thyris frowned. "I do not understand." Director Chun spoke for the first time. Her voice was hard and cold. "Humanity learned very hard lessons on Earth, Ambassador. We spent thousands of years killing each other in increasingly creative ways. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came very close to ending ourselves multiple times. When we finally reached the stars and discovered we were not alone, we had a choice to make." "What choice?" Thyris asked. We could join the galactic community as we truly are, Chun said. Warriors, killers, a species that has been perfecting the art of war since we climbed down from the trees. If we did that, we would be seen as a threat. Other species would try to contain us or destroy us. We would be at war forever. Or, Oilerin continued, we could appear harmless, trade, smile, make friends, and quietly, secretly, prepare for the day when war found us anyway. Build ships in hidden facilities. Develop weapons no one else has imagined. Train soldiers no one knows exist. So that when the time came, we could end any war so fast that it would never need to be fought twice. Diaries felt something cold moving through her body. You are saying that you have a military fleet. We are saying, Okonkwo said quietly, that we have been waiting for a reason to use it. A reason that would justify revealing what we really are to the galaxy. A cause worth fighting for. He leaned forward. The Keth are committing genocide, Ambassador. They are murdering children. They are wiping out entire species. This is exactly the kind of evil we built our fleet to stop. How large is your fleet? Thyres whispered. Okonkwo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Large enough. Director Chan commands our response force. She will take personal charge of the operation. Director Chun stood. Ambassador, a response fleet will arrive at Volanti Prime within 3 standard days. I suggest you return to your people and warn them that help is coming. Tell them to pull back their remaining ships and clear the engagement zone. What happens next will be intense. Thyre stood on shaking legs. How many ships are you sending? Enough, Chun said. The Keth have 8,000 warships. Fleet Commander Vorish stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the planet below burning. The Volanti capital was dying beautifully. Orange and red bloomed across the dark side of the world like flowers opening in spring. Each flower was a city being erased. Each petal was a million lives ending. Vorish felt nothing but satisfaction. This was what the Keth Dominion did. They consumed. They conquered. They cleansed. It was the natural order of things. The strong devoured the weak. The Volanti were weak. Therefore, the Volanti would be devoured. His communications officer clicked its mandibles in the pattern that meant incoming message. Commander, the Hive Queen sends her compliments. She is pleased with our progress. She asks how much longer until the surface resistance ends. Vorash studied the tactical display. 8,000 Keth warships formed a perfect sphere around Volanti Prime. Below them, the planet's defense grid had been destroyed hours ago. The few remaining Concordat ships, perhaps 600 in total, were clustered in a defensive formation above the capital city. They were fighting bravely, but uselessly. For every Keth ship they destroyed, 10 more took its place. Tell the Queen that resistance will end within 6 hours. By tomorrow, we will begin harvesting the population for the breeding chambers. Yes, Commander. Vorish allowed himself a moment of pride. 12 years of war, and finally the Concordat was broken. After this, they would move on to the remaining systems. The Morith were already extinct. The Volanti would soon follow. Then the Karathi. Then the Then. One by one, every species in the Concordat would join the list of races the Keth had removed from existence. And then the Dominion would find new prey. The galaxy was vast, and there were always more worlds to consume. A technician suddenly made a sharp clicking sound. Commander. Fold space event detected at the system edge. Vorash turned to the display. A ripple in space-time was forming at the outer boundary of the Volanti system. Someone was arriving via fold space jump. Identification? Unknown. The energy signature does not match any known species. Vorash clicked his mandibles in amusement. Probably some Concordat allies coming to witness the end. Or perhaps refugees trying to escape. Either way, it did not matter. Nothing in this galaxy could stop 8,000 Keth warships. The fold space rupture opened, and ships emerged. Varash counted them on the display. 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, 12. 12 ships. He made the Keth sound for laughter. 12 ships had come to challenge an armada of 8,000. Whatever species these vessels belonged to, they were clearly insane. But then his technicians began reporting their readings, and Vorish stopped laughing. Commander, these energy signatures are impossible. Our sensors are malfunctioning. What do you mean, impossible? Each of those vessels is outputting more power than our entire fleet combined. And their size. Commander, the smallest of those ships is 3 times larger than our biggest dreadnought. Vorash studied the display more carefully. The 12 ships were indeed massive. They were angular, brutal-looking vessels covered in what appeared to be thousands of weapon ports. Their hulls were black with strange patterns that seemed to shift and move as he watched them. What species do these ships belong to? The communications officer answered. They are broadcasting on all frequencies, Commander. They identify themselves as the Terran WarFleet. Terran? Vorash searched his memory. The humans? Those soft little creatures who trade in the outer sectors? Yes, Commander. Vorash made the laughter sound again, louder this time. The humans have come to fight us? This is wonderful. Their species was next on our list after the Concordat. Now they have saved us the trouble of hunting them down. The bridge crew joined in the laughter. Everyone in the galaxy knew that humans were harmless. They had no military. They were weak and short-lived and spent most of their time making art and playing games. The idea of humans challenging the Keth Dominion was the funniest thing Vorish had heard in years. What is their message? He asked. The communications officer played the broadcast. A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect Keth. This is the Terran WarFleet. We are assuming control of this engagement. All Concordat vessels withdraw to minimum safe distance immediately. Keth Dominion forces, you have 90 seconds to surrender unconditionally or be destroyed. There will be no second warning. Vorash listened to the message twice to make sure he had understood it correctly. Then he laughed so hard his exoskeleton plates rattled. 90 seconds. The humans are giving us 90 seconds to surrender. With 12 ships. He turned to his weapons officer. Target the lead human vessel. Full barrage. Let us show these pathetic creatures what happens when you threaten the Keth Dominion. Yes, Commander. Across the Keth fleet, thousands of weapons batteries came online. Plasma cannons, kinetic accelerators, nuclear missiles, antimatter torpedoes. The full destructive power of 8,000 warships focused on a single target. Fire. Space lit up with the fury of the Keth. A wall of weapons fire streaked toward the lead human ship. Enough firepower to crack a planet. Enough destruction to sterilize a solar system. The weapons hit the human vessel. And nothing happened. Vorash stared at his display in disbelief. The human ship was still there. Its shields, if that was what they were, had absorbed the entire barrage without even flickering. That's impossible, he whispered. Nothing can stop that much firepower. His sensor technician was making distress sounds. Commander, the human fleet is moving. On the display, the 12 massive vessels began to spread out. They moved with a grace that seemed wrong for ships so large. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if controlled by a single mind. All ships, Vorash ordered, focus fire on the human fleet. Everything we have, now. The Keth Armada responded. 8,000 ships poured destruction toward the 12 human vessels. The space between the fleets became a solid wall of weapons fire. The human shields held. Every weapon, every missile, Every torpedo was absorbed or deflected. The 12 ships continued their approach without slowing. Then the humans fired back. Voresh did not understand what he was seeing at first. The weapon that hit the nearest Keth dreadnought did not explode against its shields. It did not burn through the hull. It simply made the ship stop existing. One moment the dreadnought was there. The next moment there was nothing but empty space and a faint gravitational ripple. What was that? Voresh demanded. What happened to that ship? No one could answer him, because the same thing was happening everywhere. The human weapons were not like anything in the Keth database. Some of them fired beams that bent space itself, creating micro-singularities that pulled ships into oblivion. Others projected fields that made shields simply fail, leaving vessels naked and vulnerable. Still others launched projectiles that seemed to phase through matter, appearing inside ships and detonating with catastrophic results. Keth vessels began vanishing by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Retreat! Voresh screamed. All ships retreat. Activate fold space drives. Get us out of this system. Across the fleet, captains began initiating emergency jumps. Fold space drives powered up. Reality began to ripple as ships prepared to flee. And then the humans did something that made Voresh's brain stop working. A pulse of energy swept out from the 12 human vessels. It passed through the entire system in seconds. And everywhere it touched, fold space drives failed. The ripples in reality smoothed out. The escape routes closed. Our drives are offline. The navigation officer reported, its voice high with panic. All drives across the fleet. We cannot jump. That's impossible, Voresh shouted. No technology can block fold space across an entire system. But the humans had done it. 8,000 Keth warships were trapped in the Volanthi system with 12 human vessels that were systematically erasing them from existence. Voresh watched his fleet die. The humans moved through his formations like predators through a school of fish. Their ships never took a single hit. Their coordination was perfect. Every shot they fired killed a Keth vessel. Every maneuver they made positioned them for maximum destruction. The Concordat ships had pulled back, just as the humans had ordered. They floated at the system's edge and watched in silence. Voresh imagined the Volanthi crews staring at their displays, trying to understand what they were seeing. He could not understand it either. Nothing in the galaxy could do what the humans were doing. No species had weapons like theirs. No species had shields like theirs. No species could trap an entire fleet in a single system and destroy it at will. Unless the humans had been lying. Unless they had been hiding their true capabilities for decades. Unless those soft, smiling creatures who traded art and culture and seemed so harmless were actually something else entirely. Voresh remembered reading intelligence. Reports about Earth. A harsh world with extreme gravity and violent weather. A planet where everything tried to kill everything else. A species that had nearly destroyed itself multiple times before reaching the stars. The reports had concluded that humans were survivors, but not threats. They had come from hell and somehow lived, but that did not make them dangerous. The reports were wrong. The reports were so terribly, horribly wrong. On his display, the numbers counted down. 7,000 Keth ships remaining. 6,000. 5,000. Captain Mira Vasquez stood at the weapons station of the TSS Inevitable and watched the counter on her display. 90 seconds. That was how long Director Chun had given the Keth to surrender. Everyone on the bridge knew they would not take the offer. The Keth had never surrendered in their history. They would fight, and they would lose. Vasquez had served in the Terran WarFleet for 18 years. She had trained in secret facilities hidden in asteroid belts. She had run simulations of this exact scenario thousands of times. She knew every weapon system on her ship. She knew exactly what they could do. But knowing something and seeing it were different things. Weapons free. Director Chun's voice came through the fleet communication channel. Execute Pattern Omega. No survivors who continue fighting. Vasquez pressed the activation sequence for the primary graviton cannon. On her display, a targeting solution appeared, highlighting a cluster of 300 Keth warships. One shot would be enough. Firing. The weapon did not make a sound. Graviton projectors did not work like conventional weapons. They simply reached out and twisted space-time around the target area, creating a focused gravitational anomaly that pulled everything into a single point. 300 Keth ships collapsed into nothing. They did not explode. They did not burn. They simply ceased to exist, crushed into a space smaller than an atom. Vasquez felt nothing. She had been trained not to feel anything in combat. Emotion was for later. For now, there was only the mission. Across the 12 ships of the response fleet, similar scenes played out. The TSS Reckoning used phase plasma weapons that passed through shields as if they were not there. The TSS Judgment deployed antimatter torpedoes with yields that dwarfed anything the Keth had ever imagined. The TSS Mercy, ironically named, projected fields that simply turned off the power systems of any ship they touched. And everywhere, the Keth died. Vasquez watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. It was not really a battle. A battle implied that both sides had a chance of winning. This was something else entirely. This was a demonstration of what happened when you threatened humanity's friends. The Keth tried to fight back. Of course they did. Their weapons' fire filled the space between the fleets with enough energy to crack planets. Vasquez watched the incoming fire on her display and felt no concern. The inevitable shields were not shields in the conventional sense. They did not absorb energy or deflect projectiles. They existed in a slightly different phase of reality, making the ship effectively immune to any weapon that operated in normal spacetime. The Keth could fire until their weapons melted, and they would never scratch the paint on her hull. 30 seconds, the tactical officer reported. Enemy fleet at 47% strength and declining. Vasquez looked at the main view screen. Through the chaos of weapons fire and dying ships, she could see Volanthi Prime. The planet was scarred and burning, but it was still there. Billions of people were still alive down there, watching this impossible rescue unfold. She wondered what they were thinking, what they were feeling. For 12 years, they had fought and died against an enemy that could not be stopped. Now, in the span of a minute, that enemy was being erased from existence. 45 seconds. Enemy fleet at 31%. The Keth were trying to flee. Vasquez could see fold space drives activating across their remaining formation. She smiled grimly and watched as the fleet's interdiction field shut down every single one. The fold space interdiction system was one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets. It worked by creating a bubble of stabilized space-time around an entire system, making it impossible for any ship to create the fold space rupture needed for faster-than-light travel. No other species in the galaxy had anything like it. Humanity had developed it specifically for situations like this. Because when you decided to fight, you made sure the enemy could not run away. 60 seconds. Enemy fleet at 19%. The Keth formations were collapsing. Ships were scattering in all directions, trying to find some way to escape. There was none. The 12 human vessels moved through them like wolves through sheep, picking off targets with surgical precision. Vasquez fired again. And again. Each shot erased dozens of Keth ships. Each shot was a statement to the galaxy. This is what happens when you murder innocents. This is what happens when you commit genocide. This is what happens when you threaten humanity's friends. 75 seconds. Enemy fleet at 8%. A new signal appeared on the communications board. The Keth commander was broadcasting on all frequencies. Surrender. The Keth were surrendering. All ships hold fire, Director Chun ordered. The Keth have accepted our terms. Vasquez's finger hovered over her weapons control. Part of her wanted to keep firing. Part of her wanted to erase every single Keth ship for what they had done to the Concordat. For the billions they had killed. For the species they had driven to extinction. But she was a soldier of the Terran WarFleet. And soldiers followed orders. She pulled her hand back and let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. On her display, the final count appeared. 8,000 Keth warships had entered this battle. Less than 300 remained. 7,700 vessels destroyed in 90 seconds. The bridge was silent. Even after all their training, even knowing what their weapons could do. The crew of the Inevitable was stunned by what they had just witnessed. All ships, Director Chun's voice was steady, begin prisoner processing procedures. Medical teams to the surface immediately. We have a planet to save. Vasquez transferred weapon control to standby mode and turned to face her captain. Captain Rodriguez was standing at the center of the bridge, his face unreadable. "Well," he said quietly, "now the galaxy knows." "Yes, sir." 40 years of pretending to be harmless. 40 years of smiling and trading and letting everyone think we were nothing special. Gone in 90 seconds. Vasquez nodded. "It was worth it, sir. Look at that planet. Billions of people are still alive because we were here." Rodriguez walked to the view screen and looked at Volante Prime. The orbital bombardment had stopped. The fires were beginning to die. As they watched, the first human medical shuttles began dropping through the atmosphere, carrying supplies and personnel to help the survivors. "My grandfather fought in the last war," Rodriguez said. "The one that almost ended us. He told me stories about what humans did to each other. The bombs that could erase cities. The weapons that made the air itself poisonous. The hatred that drove us to the edge of extinction." He turned to face his crew. "When we reached the stars, we had a choice. We could be what we had always been. Warriors. Killers. The most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Or we could try to be something better. Something that used all that power only when it was truly needed. Today it was needed," Vasquez said. "Yes, today it was needed. And every person who died in this battle, every Keth soldier who was erased from existence, was a choice we made. A necessary choice, but still a choice. We don't get to pretend we're innocent anymore. We don't get to hide behind a mask of harmlessness. The galaxy has seen what we are." The communications officer interrupted. "Captain, Director Chun is requesting a fleet-wide address." Rodriguez nodded. "Put her through." Director Chun's face appeared on every screen in the fleet. She looked tired. She looked old. But her eyes were clear and her voice was strong. "Soldiers of the Terran WarFleet, today you did something that has never been done before. You stopped the Keth Dominion. You saved billions of lives. You showed the galaxy that there is a line that cannot be crossed, and consequences for those who cross it." She paused, and something shifted in her expression. A crack in the stone. "I know this was not easy. I know that what we did today will haunt some of you forever. We were trained to fight, but we were never told that fighting would feel like this. The weight of it. The responsibility. Taking lives, even lives as monstrous as the Keth, is not something that should ever feel normal." Vasquez felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them back and kept listening. "But I want you to remember something. Remember why we built this fleet. Remember why we hid our true nature for 40 years. We did not do it because we wanted to fight. We did not do it because we enjoy killing. We did it because we knew someday there would be innocents who needed protecting. Someday, there would be an evil so great that someone would have to stand against it, And we decided that someone would be us. Director Chen looked directly into the camera, and Vasquez felt like she was looking at her personally. Down on that planet, there are children who will grow up because of what you did today. There are families who will stay together. There are species who will survive. The Morath are gone. We cannot bring them back. But the Volanthi will live. The Concordat will survive. And the Keth will never threaten anyone again. She straightened, and the stone mask returned. Our work is not done. There are wounded to treat, prisoners to process, a planet to rebuild. The Keth homeworld will need to be addressed. The Dominion's other fleets will need to be neutralized. We have started something today that will take months or years to finish. But we have started it, and we will finish it. Because that is who we are. Not conquerors. Not killers. Protectors. The sword that defends those who cannot defend themselves. The shield that stands between evil and its victims. Ambassador Thyres walked through the corridors of the human flagship and tried to understand what she was seeing. The ship was called the TSS Inevitable, and it was the most terrifying thing she had ever encountered. From the outside, it looked like a weapon given form. Angular and brutal, covered in enough firepower to conquer a solar system. But inside, it looked almost normal. Clean corridors. Comfortable meeting rooms. A mess hall where human soldiers sat eating and talking quietly. The contrast made her head hurt. Director Chun met her at the entrance to the command center. The human woman looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes. A tension in her shoulders that had not been there 3 days ago. Ambassador, thank you for coming aboard. Thyres made the Volanthi gesture of deep gratitude. Director, it is I who should thank you. You saved my people. You saved my planet. I do not have words sufficient to express what that means. Chun nodded but did not smile. Walk with me. I think it's time I explained some things. They walked through the ship, passing human crew members, who nodded respectfully at both of them. Thyres noticed that none of the humans seemed happy. Victorious, yes. Relieved, certainly. But not happy. I expected celebration, Thyres said. Your fleet achieved something impossible. You destroyed 8,000 enemy ships in 90 seconds. Why does everyone look so sad? Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Do you know the history of humanity, Ambassador? Our real history, not the version we share with the galaxy? I know that you come from a harsh world. I know that you achieved space travel despite many difficulties. That's the polite version. Chum stopped at a large window looking out at Volanthi Prime. The planet was still scarred. But the worst fires were out now. Human medical ships were landing everywhere, bringing help to the survivors. The truth is much darker. Thyres waited. Humans have been killing each other since before we had language, Chun said. We developed tools for hunting and immediately used them on each other. We invented agriculture and invented war to fight over the farms. We built cities and invented siege weapons to destroy them. She turned to face Thyres. Every time we made something beautiful, we found a way to turn it into a weapon. Chemistry gave us medicine and poison gas. Physics gave us electricity and atomic bombs. We came within minutes of destroying our entire species, not once but several times. Not because of alien invaders or natural disasters, but because we could not stop fighting ourselves. Yet, you survived, Thyres said. Barely. And when we finally reached the stars and discovered that we were not alone, we faced a choice. We could do what we had always done. Fight. Conquer. Dominate. There were those who wanted to do exactly that. Build an empire. Show the galaxy that humans were the strongest species. What stopped them? Chum smiled bitterly. We did. Those of us who remembered the last war. Those of us who had seen what humans could do to each other. We knew that if we revealed our true nature to the galaxy, we would be at war forever. Other species would fear us, attack us, form coalitions against us. And we would fight back, because that's what humans do. Eventually, we would destroy everything, including ourselves. So you hid, Thyri said, beginning to understand. You pretended to be harmless. For 40 years. We smiled and traded and made friends. We let everyone think we were weak. And in secret, we built. Chun gestured at the ship around them. We built weapons that no one else had imagined. We trained soldiers in hidden facilities. We prepared for the day when we would have to fight, not because we wanted to, but because someone else would force us to. Thyris felt a chill run through her. You were always planning for war. We were planning to end war. There's a difference. Chun started walking again, and Thyris followed. Our strategists calculated that the best way to prevent conflict was to be so overwhelmingly powerful that no one would ever dare to start one. And if someone did start one, we would end it so quickly and so completely that it would never need to be fought again. They reached a viewing gallery. Through the transparent walls, Thyris could see space around Volanti Prime, the debris field where the Keth fleet had been. The human ships holding position. And in the distance, fold space ruptures opening as more human vessels arrived. How many ships do you have? Thyris whispered. The Terran WarFleet numbers over 3,000 combat vessels. What you saw today was our smallest response option. 3,000 ships. Each one capable of what Thyris had witnessed. The implications were staggering. You could conquer the entire galaxy. Yes, Chun's voice was flat. We could. We have calculated the scenarios. With our current fleet strength, we could subjugate every known species within 5 years. No one could stop us, but you haven't. Because conquest was never the point. Chun turned to face Thyris directly. Ambassador, I need you to understand something. The power you have seen is not something we are proud of. It is something we are ashamed of. We are ashamed that we are so good at killing. We are ashamed that our history is written in blood. We are ashamed that when we looked at the galaxy and asked ourselves what we could contribute, the answer was weapons. Thyris did not know what to say. She had expected arrogance, triumph, the pride of conquerors. Instead, she was seeing something else, something that looked almost like grief. Then why did you build them? She asked. Because power only matters if you have it when you need it. Because there are species like the Keth who only understand force. Because someday, somewhere, innocent people would be dying, and someone would need to stop it. Chun's eyes glistened. We built these weapons so that when that day came, we would be ready. And today, that day came. A communication alert chimed. Chun touched a panel on the wall, and a display appeared showing a star map. Thyris recognized it as Keth space. This is the current situation, Chun said. 200 of our ships arrived at the Keth homeworld 6 hours ago. The Dominion's remaining military forces have surrendered. The Hive Queens have been removed from power. The war is over. Thyris stared at the display. 6 hours. In 6 hours, humanity had dismantled an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. What will you do with them? She asked. The Keth? That's what I wanted to discuss with you. Chun changed the display to show the Keth homeworld. It was a dark, harsh-looking planet covered in massive hive structures. The Keth are not evil by nature, Ambassador. They are the products of a brutal evolutionary history and a social structure that rewards conquest. The Hive Queens controlled their society through chemical signals that suppressed individual thought. With the Queens removed, the individual Keth are beginning to think for themselves for the first time. You're not going to destroy them? Chun looked at her sharply. No, We are not going to commit genocide. That would make us no better than they are. But after what they did to us, to the Morath, to all the species they murdered, justice and vengeance are not the same thing. Chen's voice was hard. We will hold trials for those who ordered atrocities. We will dismantle their military permanently. We will require reparations to be paid to their victims. But we will not murder an entire species for the crimes of their leaders. Thyres felt a complex mixture of emotions. Part of her wanted the Keth to suffer. Part of her wanted them to feel a fraction of the pain they had caused. But another part of her, a part she had almost forgotten existed after 12 years of war, recognized the wisdom in what Chun was saying. You truly are different, she said quietly. We try to be. Chun deactivated the display. Ambassador, the galaxy is about to change. Everyone has seen what we did today. They know now that humanity is not what we pretended to be. Some will be afraid of us. Some will hate us. Some will try to form alliances against us. And what will you do? What we should have done from the beginning. Be honest about who we are. Accept the responsibility that comes with our power. Use our strength to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and never, ever use it for conquest. Chun smiled for the first time. We've been hiding for 40 years, Ambassador. I think it's time we stopped. Thyres thought about her planet below. The city's still smoking. The billions of survivors just beginning to realize they were going to live. The human medical teams working alongside Volanthi healers to save as many as possible. The Concordat will stand with you, she said. Whatever the galaxy decides about humanity, you will have our support. You earned it today. We didn't do it for support. We did it because it was right, I know. That's why you have our support. Chun extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. Thyres took it, feeling the warmth of human skin against her own cool blue flesh. What happens now? Thyres asked. Now we rebuild. Your world, your alliance, the Keth territories. It will take years, maybe decades, but we will do it together. Chun released her hand. And we will make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. The galaxy will know that there is a line that cannot be crossed. That there are consequences for genocide. That the innocent will be protected, no matter how powerful their enemies. Thyres looked out at the stars. She thought about the future. A future where humanity stood as guardians rather than conquerors. A future where species like the Keth would be rehabilitated rather than destroyed. A future where power was used for protection rather than domination. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Volanthi Prime. 1 year since 12 human ships had changed everything. Ambassador. Thyres stood at the speaking platform of the Galactic Assembly and looked out at the gathered representatives of 100 species. The great chamber was full. Every delegation had sent their senior members. Every world that mattered had someone present. And in the center of the human section, Director Chun sat quietly, watching. Thyres took a deep breath and began. 1 year ago, my world was dying. The Keth Dominion had besieged Volanthi Prime. Billions of my people faced extinction. The Concordat, after 12 years of war, had nothing left. We had fought. We had sacrificed. We had lost. She paused, letting the memory settle over the assembly. And then humanity came. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Everyone remembered. The videos of the battle had spread across every network in the galaxy. The 90 seconds that had ended an empire. The weapons that defied explanation. The shields that absorbed everything. The species that had been hiding in plain sight for 40 years. I will not pretend that we understood what we saw. I will not pretend that we were not afraid. Humanity had revealed itself as the most powerful military force in known space. They had lied to us for decades of their true capabilities. They had built weapons that could destroy anything we could imagine. Tyrus looked at Director Chun. The human woman sat perfectly still, her face unreadable. We asked ourselves, what kind of species is this? What kind of people hide such power? What do they want? What will they do with this strength now that everyone knows about it? She turned back to the assembly. I will tell you what they did. In the years since the battle, humanity has rebuilt my world. They sent engineers to repair our cities. They sent doctors to heal our wounded. They sent teachers to help us recover our knowledge. They asked for nothing in return. More murmurs. This was not what many had expected to hear. They went to the Keth homeworld and dismantled the Dominion. But they did not destroy the Keth people. Instead, they removed the queens who had controlled them. They helped the individual Keth learn to think for themselves. They set up rehabilitation programs. Today, former Keth soldiers work alongside Concordat citizens to rebuild the worlds that were damaged in the war. Thyres activated a display behind her. Images appeared. Human medics treating Keth wounded. Human engineers teaching Volanthi construction techniques. Human diplomats mediating disputes between species that had been enemies for generations. We asked what kind of species hides such strength. Now I can answer. They are the species wise enough to know that strength means nothing if it is used for conquest. They are the species that learned, through terrible experience, that power must be controlled. They are the species that looked at our galaxy and saw not opportunities for domination, but people who needed protection. She deactivated the display. I know there are those among you who fear humanity. I understand your fear. I shared it once. But I ask you to look at what they have done, not what they could do. They could have conquered us all. They could have built an empire that spanned the galaxy. Instead, they saved lives. They rebuilt worlds. They showed mercy to their defeated enemies. Director Chun stood up. The assembly went silent. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the great chamber. Ambassador Thuries is too kind. Humanity does not deserve the praise she offers. We are not heroes. We are not saviors. We are a species that was forced to face the darkest parts of ourselves and decided, finally, to try to be better. She walked to the speaking platform and stood beside Thyres. 40 years ago, we reached the stars and found that we were not alone. We could have revealed our true capabilities then. We could have announced ourselves as warriors, as conquerors, as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We chose not to. Not because we were wise, but because we were afraid. Chun looked out at the gathered representatives. Many of them would not meet her eyes. We were afraid of ourselves. We knew what we had done on Earth. The wars. The genocides. The weapons that had nearly destroyed us. We looked at our history and asked, what happens if we bring this into the galaxy? What happens if we start fighting species who are not like us? Would we ever stop? She shook her head slowly. We did not trust ourselves. So we hid. We built our fleet in secret, telling ourselves it was for defense. We watched the galaxy and waited, hoping we would never have to use what we had built. For 40 years, we pretended to be something we were not. And then the Keth came. And we learned that hiding was its own form of cowardice. Director Chun's voice hardened. While we hid, the Morith died. While we pretended to be harmless, billions of innocent people were murdered. While we congratulated ourselves on our wisdom and restraint, the Keth consumed world after world. We told ourselves we were being careful. The truth is that we were being selfish. We were so afraid of what we might become that we let others pay the price for our fear. The assembly was completely silent now. That ends today. Humanity will no longer hide. We will no longer pretend to be something we are not. We are warriors. We are killers. We have weapons that can destroy anything in this galaxy. That is the truth, and everyone deserves to know it." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "But that is not all we are. We are also healers, builders, teachers. We have spent the last year proving that our power does not have to mean conquest. That strength can be used for protection instead of domination. That the most dangerous species in the galaxy can also be the most merciful." Director Chun raised her hand, and a new display appeared. It showed a document covered in text and symbols from dozens of different species. This is the Terran Accord. It is a promise from humanity to the galaxy. We will never use our military strength for conquest or domination. We will never attack any species without provocation. We will always offer surrender before destruction. And we will always protect those who cannot protect themselves. She looked at the gathered representatives. "In return, we ask only one thing, that you hold us to this promise. Watch us, judge us. If we ever break our word, if we ever use our power for evil, stand against us. Form coalitions. Fight us. Because we know ourselves well enough to know that we need to be watched. We need others to hold us accountable." Chun lowered her hand and the display disappeared. Humanity offers the galaxy a choice. You can fear us, and we will understand. You can hate us, and we will accept it. Or you can work with us. Help us become what we want to be. A shield for the innocent. A sword against tyranny. A promise that no matter how dark the galaxy becomes, there will always be someone willing to stand against the darkness. She stepped back from the platform. "The choice is yours." The assembly erupted into conversation. Representatives argued and debated. Some looked at the human delegation with fear. Others with hope. A few with something that might have been trust. Ambassador Thyrus stood beside Director Chun and watched. "That was very honest," Thyrus said quietly. "Many would have hidden the parts about fear and selfishness." Chun smiled wearily. "Honesty is the only thing that will work now. Everyone saw what we can do. If we try to pretend we're gentle and harmless, no one will believe us. The only way forward is to admit what we are and prove that what we are doesn't have to be evil." "Do you think they will accept the accord?" "Some will. Some won't. It doesn't matter. The accord isn't really for them. It's for us. A reminder of who we want to be. A promise we made to ourselves, written down so we can't forget it." Thyrus thought about that. A species so afraid of their own nature that they wrote down rules to control themselves. It was strange. It was alien. But it was also, she realized, very human. "I should tell you something," she said. "When I first traveled to Earth to ask for help, I expected nothing. I thought humans were weak and harmless. I thought you would offer food and medicine and kind words and nothing else. And now?" Thyrus looked at Director Chun, at this human woman who commanded weapons capable of destroying worlds, who had chosen to use them to save instead of conquer, who stood in front of a galaxy that feared her and asked only to be held accountable. "Now I understand that you are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Not because of your weapons, because you know exactly what you are capable of, and you choose to be better anyway. That takes a kind of courage that I have never seen before." Chun was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Thank you, Ambassador. I hope we can live up to that. So do I." They stood together and watched the assembly debate humanity's future. Outside the Great Chamber, ships from 100 worlds orbited the Council Station. Beyond them, the stars stretched into infinity, full of dangers and wonders that no species had yet discovered. Somewhere in that vastness, humanity waited. 3,000 warships hidden in secret bases. Soldiers trained to fight wars that might never come. Weapons that could reshape the galaxy if they were ever fully unleashed. And at the heart of it all, a promise. Never again. Never again would humans stand by while innocents suffered. Never again would they hide while evil consumed the weak. Never again would they let fear stop them from doing what was right. Director Chen watched the debate and allowed herself, finally, to cry. Not from sadness, not from guilt, but from something she had not felt in a very long time: hope.